My name is Nia Thomas, and what I'm about to share with you will change the way you see prayer, faith, and the power of spiritual gifts. On April 12th, 2024, I died, literally died, inside a church. I was clinically dead for 7 minutes, but what I experienced in that short time was more real than anything I've known in my entire life. Jesus Christ himself appeared to me and revealed shocking truths about why black people are spiritually gifted. What he showed me about prayer, faith, and spiritual power completely changed my understanding of reality. I need to tell you what I saw because it's something the world needs to hear. It was a Friday morning, and I remember the air being heavy with humidity, the kind of morning where the heat sticks to your skin even though the sun isn't out yet. I was running late for the morning prayer service at St. Michael's Baptist Church. We always met on Fridays at 7 a.m., just before work. My grandmother, God rest her soul, had started this prayer group years ago. She always told me, "Baby, if you stay close to the Lord, He will stay close to you." I had been feeling off for weeks, not sick exactly, but like something was weighing on my spirit. I brushed it off as stress. Between work, family, and trying to keep my own faith strong, I was exhausted. That morning, I almost skipped church, but something told me I needed to go. It wasn't a voice, more like a feeling deep in my chest. I arrived at the church 5 minutes late. The old wooden pews creaked as I slid into my usual spot near the back. Pastor Davis was leading the prayer, his deep voice filling the room. "Lord, we ask for your protection today. We ask that you open our hearts and strengthen our faith." His voice was steady, comforting. I closed my eyes and started to pray, but as soon as I bowed my head, a sudden pressure wrapped around my chest. My heart hammered in my ears. I gasped, clutching my chest. My vision blurred. A sharp, burning pain shot down my left arm. Someone shouted my name. "Nia!" I heard footsteps running toward me. My knees buckled, and I collapsed onto the cold wooden floor. I felt hands on my shoulders, but they were slipping away. The world around me dimmed. The stained glass windows above the altar seemed to shimmer and bend. I could hear people yelling, someone calling 911, but it was all slipping away. My breath stopped. My heart stopped. The pain disappeared. And then, nothing. Everything went quiet. Not just quiet, empty. No sound, no feeling, just darkness. It should have been terrifying, but it wasn't. I felt weightless, like I was floating in water. Then, from somewhere deep inside the silence, I heard my grandmother's voice. "It's not your time yet, baby. You need to listen now." Suddenly, a burst of light exploded in front of me. It wasn't harsh. It was soft and warm, like standing in the sun after a long, cold winter. The light began to take shape. That's when I realized I wasn't alone. I felt myself being pulled upward, not by force, more like I was being drawn towards something familiar. I wasn't afraid. In fact, I had never felt more at peace. The light was growing brighter, and the warmth intensified. I knew I was leaving my body, but I didn't care. I wasn't Nia Thomas anymore. I was just being. I could see the church below me. My body was lying there on the floor, and people were gathered around me. Some were crying. Pastor Davis was kneeling beside me, clutching my hand, his lips moving in prayer. But none of it felt important. I was floating above it all, completely free. A soft hum started vibrating through the light. It was like music, but deeper. I could feel it more than hear it. My grandmother's voice came through the hum again. "Keep going, baby. He's waiting for you." Suddenly, the light shifted. A doorway opened in the distance. It was like looking through the edge of a cloud into the clearest blue sky you've ever seen. A figure stood at the opening. He was tall, clothed in white. His face was hidden by the brightness, but I knew who it was. I started moving toward him. The closer I got, the stronger the light became. My chest filled with warmth and peace. Then I heard his voice. Nia. That single word contained so much love that it broke me. I started crying. Tears without a body. The figure moved closer. His face came into view and my heart stopped. It was Jesus. His eyes were endless, galaxies swirling in the depths of them. His skin was golden, glowing from within. His smile was calm, knowing. Nia, he said again. His voice felt like home. Come closer. I was drawn to him, but I didn't have to walk. I simply moved. He reached out his hand, and the moment his fingers touched mine, a wave of understanding crashed through me. My entire life, every joy, every heartache, every question was answered in an instant. He knew me, every piece of me. Nia, he said softly, there's something you need to know. Before he spoke again, the light around us dimmed, the warmth faded. I was no longer in the clouded sky. Instead, I was standing in what looked like endless night. Not blackness, it was deeper than that. It was like standing in a place where light had never existed. Do not fear, Jesus said, his hand still on mine. This is where it begins. Shapes began to form in the darkness. Faces, thousands of them, men, women, children. Their skin was dark, their eyes bright. They were singing, softly at first, then louder. Their voices blended into a perfect harmony. These are your people, Jesus said, your ancestors. Their prayers have kept the world alive. I could feel the energy coming off of them, strength, power, pain. They were standing on a foundation made of chains. The chains were breaking beneath their feet. I watched as the pieces dissolved into light. They suffered so others could be free, Jesus said. Their strength became spiritual armor. I was shaking. Tears filled my eyes. Why are you showing me this? Because, Jesus said, their gift is still alive in you. The darkness lifted, and suddenly I was moving again, faster this time. Flashes of light streaked past me. I could feel the vibrations of every sound. Then I saw it, a massive web stretching across the sky. Lines of energy connected every person, every soul. At the center of the web was a bright core of light. This, Jesus said, is the connection of human consciousness. I saw the threads glowing brightest where black people stood. Their prayers, their faith, were pouring light into the web. They are spiritually gifted, Jesus explained. Because they have endured, their pain gave birth to strength. Their faith held the world together when others gave up. Tears slid down my cheeks. But why? Because they were chosen, Jesus said, to teach the world how to see through the darkness. My heart swelled with understanding. My people's pain had created a spiritual inheritance, an unbreakable thread in the tapestry of human existence. Go back, Jesus said, and tell them. I was still standing in the endless dark when the tunnel appeared. At first it was just a thin line of light stretching into the distance. Then it widened, becoming a swirling vortex of golden light spinning gently in the air. It wasn't just light, it was alive. It pulsed with warmth and energy as though it was breathing. The vibrations from it filled my chest, pulling me toward it. Go, Jesus said, his hand still on my shoulder. I hesitated. Where does it lead? Jesus smiled gently. To the truth. The tunnel began to pulse faster, each ripple of light passing through me like a heartbeat. My feet weren't moving, but I could feel myself being pulled toward it. My body, or whatever I was now, was weightless. The moment I crossed into the tunnel, the sound changed. The vibrations grew louder, turning into a deep hum. It was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard, like a choir of voices singing in perfect harmony. The light surrounded me. Every strand of it seemed to contain layers of knowledge and understanding. Colors that don't exist on Earth were twisting through the light, blending and separating in ways that defied logic. My mind struggled to keep up, but my spirit understood it immediately. I could feel the presence of others, souls, moving through the tunnel beside me. I couldn't see them clearly, but I could sense them. Some were ahead of me, some behind. All of us were being drawn towards something greater. Then I heard it. Voices, deep and resonant. They weren't speaking English, but I understood every word. It was a language that spoke directly to my soul. It was the sound of creation itself. "Who are they?" I asked. "They are the ancestors," Jesus said. His voice was clear even though he was no longer standing beside me. "Those who came before you, they are waiting for you." The tunnel opened into a massive space. It looked like a sky made of stars, but the stars were moving, dancing in patterns that I somehow recognized. Figures began to emerge from the stars. Tall figures, dark-skinned with glowing eyes and radiant skin. Their faces were familiar, even though I had never seen them before. A woman stepped forward. She wore a flowing robe of deep blue, her hair in long braids down her back. Her eyes glowed with golden light. "Welcome home," she said. Tears welled up in my eyes. "I know you," I whispered. "You've always known us," she replied. "We've been with you since the beginning." The others stepped closer. Their energy filled the space with warmth and strength. I felt no fear, only belonging. "You come from a lineage of strength," the woman said. "The gifts passed down through blood and spirit. This is why you have always felt things deeply, why your prayers have power." Jesus' voice returned. "Now you will understand why." As the ancestors stepped back, Jesus appeared before me again. He was glowing brighter now, the golden light radiating from his entire being. His eyes were steady, filled with love and knowledge. I could feel the weight of his presence pressing into me, not heavy, but undeniable. "Nia," he said, his voice calm but powerful, "do you know why you were brought here?" I swallowed hard. My mind raced. Because of my people." "Yes," Jesus said, stepping closer. "You need to understand the truth about who you are." I took a shaky breath. "Tell me." Jesus reached out his hand, and I placed mine in his. The moment our hands touched, a flood of images rushed through my mind. I saw the faces of my ancestors, men and women working in fields under the hot sun, their hands rough and their backs bent. I saw them singing as they worked, their voices blending in harmony. Even in their suffering, their spirits remained unbroken. "You carry their strength," Jesus said. The images shifted. I saw black churches, hands raised in worship, tears streaming down faces. I saw gospel choirs, their voices shaking the foundations of the building. I saw families gathered around tables, heads bowed in prayer. "Faith was your inheritance," Jesus said. "Even when the world tried to take everything from you, they could not take your connection to God." I saw flashes of struggle, marches, protests, violence, but through it all, there was a thread of light weaving through the darkness. "This is why black people are spiritually gifted," Jesus said, "because your connection to God was forged in fire. It was strengthened through suffering. Your people have always known how to call upon heaven when the world failed them." Tears ran down my face. I could feel the truth of it, the strength in my grandmother's prayers. the power in the songs sung in the churches of my childhood, the unbreakable spirit passed down through generations. "This is why you've always felt different," Jesus said. "You were born with spiritual sensitivity. It's in your blood." "Why me?" I whispered. "Because," Jesus said, "you were chosen to tell them." Jesus lifted his hand, and a ripple of light passed through the space around us. Images appeared in the air, black men and women praying. I could see their prayers radiating light, waves of energy pouring out of them and into the world. Some prayers were soft and gentle, others sharp and powerful, like beams of light cutting through the darkness. "Black people are spiritually gifted," Jesus said, "because their connection to the divine is woven into their very existence." I saw how their prayers formed a network, a web of spiritual power that stretched across the earth. Each prayer strengthened the others, creating a shield of light that pushed back against the darkness. "Do you see?" Jesus asked. "Yes," I whispered. "Your people have the gift of spiritual strength," he said. "Faith, prayer, and endurance. That's why you have always known how to survive, why you have always known how to hope." Jesus stepped closer, his gaze intense. "But the world has tried to bury this gift, through oppression, through fear, through the distortion of truth. I saw it. Centuries of colonization, slavery, segregation, the attempts to strip away identity and faith. But the gift never died. It remained, burning beneath the surface. Now," Jesus said, "it's time for the gift to awaken." Jesus reached out, and suddenly I was standing above the earth. I could see it turning beneath me. Light and darkness moved across the planet in waves. I could see pockets of darkness gathering over certain places. But beneath the darkness, I saw a pulse, a steady rhythm of light. "What is that?" I asked. "The prayers of your ancestors," Jesus replied. I could see them, souls bending down, hands clasped, voices raised. Their prayers created waves of energy that pushed back against the darkness. Every prayer left behind an imprint, creating a foundation of light that future generations stood upon. "They passed it down," Jesus said. "Faith, strength, the ability to see beyond the physical." I saw myself as a child, kneeling beside my grandmother as she prayed. I saw the light from her prayers wrapping around me. "It's why you've always felt protected," Jesus said. "The prayers of those who came before you have guarded you." I saw other people, black children, black men and women, walking through storms of darkness. Their steps were guided by the light beneath them. "This," Jesus said, "is why the enemy fears you, because you were born connected to heaven." I swallowed hard, the truth sinking into my soul. "And now, Jesus said, "you must wake them up." Jesus' gaze softened as I stood suspended above the earth, watching the light and darkness move across the planet below me. The swirling threads of light connected to certain people more than others, and I noticed something strange. The brightest, most powerful currents of light were concentrated around black people. Their light pulsed more steadily, cutting through the surrounding darkness with sharp clarity. I turned toward Jesus, confusion washing over me. "Why?" I whispered. "Why is their light stronger?" Jesus stepped closer, his presence radiating warmth and calm. "Because," he said, "they were created with heightened spiritual sensitivity. From the beginning, black people were designed with a deeper connection to the spiritual realm." My heart pounded in my chest. "Why?" Jesus extended his hand, and a series of images appeared in the space around us. I saw the beginning of human existence. Early tribes gathered around fires, hands raised toward the sky. Their skin was dark, their voices resonant with songs and prayers. They weren't asking for survival, They were communicating with the divine. Their prayers weren't desperate, they were powerful. They knew their connection to God was direct. They were the first, Jesus said, the first to walk the earth, the first to speak to the Creator. Their connection to God was not learned. It was innate, woven into the structure of their souls. My breath caught in my throat. But why? Because they were created to be spiritual anchors, Jesus said. The strength of their faith would serve as a foundation for the rest of humanity. Their prayers would hold the world together when the enemy tried to tear it apart. I saw flashes of history, empires rising and falling, wars, famine, and betrayal. But beneath all of it, the foundation of faith remained. Even when civilization crumbled, black communities continued to pray, continued to create music and language that reached directly into the spiritual realm. But if they are so connected, I asked, why have they suffered so much? Jesus' expression darkened. Because the enemy knows their power. He has been trying to sever their connection since the beginning. I saw flashes of chains, colonization, slavery, segregation, systemic oppression. I saw how these attempts to suppress and dehumanize black people were designed to break their connection to God. But it didn't work, Jesus said, his eyes flashing with certainty. Because faith cannot be stolen, connection to God cannot be destroyed. Tears streamed down my face. I saw how even through suffering, black people maintained a direct line to the divine. Spirituals sung in fields, whispered prayers in the night, faith passed down from mother to child. That sensitivity, Jesus said, is why black people have always known things others couldn't explain. Why they can feel shifts in energy, sense danger before it arrives, and see beyond the physical world. Their spiritual antenna is stronger because they were created to hold the line. My chest tightened. I thought about my grandmother, how she always seemed to know when something was wrong, even before I told her. How she could sit in silence for hours and come away with answers no one else could find. It's in you too, Jesus said. You've always felt it. I nodded. I couldn't deny it. I had always been able to sense things, people's intentions, hidden truths, shifts in energy. I just thought I was overthinking things. But now I understood. It wasn't paranoia. It was spiritual sensitivity. This, Jesus said, is why your prayers have power. When you pray, you're tapping into centuries of faith, centuries of resilience. That connection gives you authority in the spiritual realm. I stared down at the earth below, watching the threads of light pulse through black communities like a living network. My people weren't just surviving, they were holding the world together with their prayers. Jesus raised his hand, and the image of earth faded. In its place I saw the beginning of creation, light exploding into darkness, planets forming, stars igniting, the cosmos stretched out in every direction, a swirling sea of galaxies and color. This, Jesus said, is where it began. I watched as Earth took shape, a fragile blue orb floating in the vast emptiness of space. Land rose from the oceans, life began to stir in the water, then on the land. I saw human beings take their first steps. The first people were black. Their skin was dark and radiant, their eyes filled with light. They walked with purpose, with understanding. They knelt beside rivers and raised their hands toward the sky. They spoke, not in fear, but with familiarity. They were not just created, Jesus said. They were formed from the breath of God. My chest tightened. You mean? Yes, Jesus said. God formed them with a direct connection to his spirit. Their DNA carries the blueprint of creation itself. I saw how the early people interacted with nature. Plants thrived under their hands. Animals followed them with trust. They could sense the patterns of the seasons, the rhythms of the earth. Their prayers shaped the world around them. They were created to steward creation, Jesus said, to understand the earth, to speak to the spiritual realm, to guard the balance between heaven and earth. The image shifted. I saw how this balance was attacked. Darkness seeped into the world. Division, greed, violence. The connection to creation weakened as humanity turned away from God. But the gift never disappeared, Jesus said. It remained, hidden, dormant in the hearts of those who were closest to the original creation. My breath hitched. Black people. Yes, Jesus said. Because they were the first, they remain closest to the original design. That's why they feel the earth's pain more deeply. That's why they sense spiritual shifts before others. They carry the memory of creation in their souls. I saw flashes of modern life. Black communities gathering in churches, swaying to the rhythm of gospel music. I saw hands lifted in worship, tears streaming down faces. They are not separate from creation, Jesus said. They are part of it. That connection gives them authority. Jesus stepped closer. This connection, he said, makes your prayers different. I saw waves of light radiating from praying figures. Their prayers created visible energy, threads of gold and blue that moved through the air, connecting with other threads. When black people pray, Jesus said, they are not simply asking, they are commanding. Their connection to creation gives their words weight in the spiritual realm. I saw an elderly woman kneeling in a small apartment. Her hands were clasped, her eyes squeezed shut. Her prayer moved like a beam of light through the darkness, breaking apart shadows. She isn't just hoping, Jesus said. She is shifting reality. The image changed. I saw a young man standing in the middle of a storm. His hands were raised. His prayer formed a shield around him, pushing back the wind and rain. That is the power of spiritual authority, Jesus said. When they pray, the universe listens. Tears blurred my vision. Then why is life still so hard for them? Because the enemy knows their power, Jesus said. He works to keep them distracted, discouraged, and divided. Because if they awaken to their full authority, they will be unstoppable. Jesus' expression grew serious. But with this power, he said, comes responsibility. I saw a vision of the future, black men and women standing in circles, hands clasped, heads bowed. Light radiated from them, forming protective barriers around cities and communities. They are called to protect and lead, Jesus said. Not through politics or violence, but through prayer and spiritual alignment. I saw a young woman standing at a podium, her voice steady and calm. Her words carried waves of light through the crowd. People's faces lifted in hope. They must teach others how to align with the spiritual realm, Jesus said, how to harness the power of faith and creation. I saw others rejecting this calling, turning toward materialism and division. Their light dimmed. They will face temptation, Jesus said. The enemy will try to corrupt them, but those who remain aligned with heaven will carry the authority to change nations. Jesus looked at me. You must tell them. My heart pounded. But will they listen? They will, Jesus said, because the truth is written in their souls. Jesus' gaze darkened as the vision shifted. The light I had seen before, flowing through black communities, connecting them to creation and spiritual authority, began to flicker and dim. Shadows crept in at the edges, twisting the threads of energy until they began to fray. The radiant gold light that once flowed effortlessly through their prayers turned dull, weighed down by dark smoke-like tendrils. "What's happening?" I whispered. Jesus' expression remained steady, but I could feel the gravity of what he was about to reveal. "This," he said, "is what happens when the connection is attacked." The vision sharpened. I saw ships crossing dark oceans, chains clinking in the damp air. The cries of people echoed through the heavy mist, their voices strained with fear and confusion. I saw black men and women chained together, their bodies broken, their eyes hollow. But even through the suffering, I could see faint threads of light connecting them. Their prayers were still alive, flickering beneath the weight of oppression. "They tried to erase your connection," Jesus said, "through slavery, colonization, violence, and forced submission. The enemy understood that the strength of your people lay not in their bodies, but in their connection to heaven." My chest tightened. I saw enslaved men and women being forced to abandon their languages, their names, their traditions. I saw children being separated from their parents, forbidden to pray in their own way, stripped of their spiritual identity. "They broke their bodies," Jesus said, "but they couldn't break their souls." I saw quiet moments beneath the stars, men and women gathered in secret, singing in hushed tones. Their prayers created thin streams of light that floated upward, piercing through the darkness. Even when their voices were silenced, their spirits continued to call upon heaven. "They knew who they were," Jesus said, "even when the world told them they were nothing." The vision shifted again. I saw systemic oppression unfolding over centuries: segregation, economic exploitation, mass incarceration. Black men and women were pushed to the margins of society, their gifts distorted and their potential limited. "This was not random," Jesus said. "It was intentional. The enemy worked through human systems to keep your people from recognizing their power. He turned your gifts into burdens." I saw black communities struggling under the weight of poverty, addiction, and violence. The light within them was still there, but it was faint, buried beneath layers of trauma and fear. I saw young men and women turning to materialism and self-destruction, not realizing that the emptiness they felt was spiritual displacement. "They have been told they are powerless," Jesus said. "They have been conditioned to believe they are cursed, but the truth remains. They are chosen." Tears blurred my vision. "How can they reclaim it?" I asked. Jesus' eyes softened. "Through remembrance," he said. "They must remember who they are. They must reconnect to the truth that was planted in them before time began. The gift has never left them. It has only been hidden beneath the weight of lies." A single thread of light flickered in the darkness. It pulsed weakly, then grew brighter. "When they awaken to the truth," Jesus said, "their power will return." Jesus reached out, and the vision changed again. I saw a young woman standing alone in her bedroom, tears streaming down her face. She fell to her knees, clutching her chest. Her mouth opened, and a prayer poured out of her. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't polite. It was raw, honest, desperate. The moment her words left her mouth, the light surrounding her body pulsed and exploded outward. Golden threads shot into the air, connecting to other lights forming in the distance. The light within her grew, expanding until it filled the room. "This," Jesus said, "is the beginning of restoration." I watched as other figures began to awaken. I saw black men and women standing in their homes, in churches, in hospitals, and in prisons. Their prayers radiated light. I saw mothers praying over their children, grandmothers anointing their doorways with oil. The light from their prayers began to stretch out, connecting with the prayers of others across continents. "They must return to true prayer," Jesus said, "not the passive, fearful prayers they were taught, but the bold, commanding prayers their ancestors knew." I saw a young boy standing on a street corner, his head bowed, his hands clasped. His prayer sent a shockwave through the darkness surrounding the neighborhood. The energy from his prayer pushed back the shadow, revealing beams of golden light beneath the pavement. They must reclaim their authority, Jesus said. The authority to command peace, to restore brokenness, to heal the wounded. How? I asked. Jesus smiled. Through remembrance and faith. I saw gatherings of people in fields, on city streets, in churches. Their hands were raised, their voices strong. They weren't begging, they were declaring. Their prayers were not timid requests, but commands. They were calling heaven to move. They must remember who they are, Jesus said. They must speak from a place of knowing, not hoping. When they do, their prayers will not just be heard, they will create. I saw churches filled with music, black choirs singing with tears streaming down their faces. Their songs created visible waves of energy that extended into the atmosphere. They must reject the lies, Jesus said. The lie that they are powerless, the lie that they are cursed, the lie that they are separate from God. The light surrounding the praying figures intensified. The darkness began to retreat, pushed back by the strength of their unified faith. Faith is the key, Jesus said. Faith activates the gift.